Welcome to Oracle Insight. My name is Flaura. Today it's a Hearth and Home Happenings reading. So by that I'm referring to hearth as in back in the day that was considered the central place that everybody would gather in a house, and that's because that was where the most heat emanated from, because there was a furnace fire of some sort in that area. So hearth and home. It's a timeless reading, so it's relevant for whenever it is that you come across it. And of course, it's a general reading, so claim what fits, leave what doesn't. I'll start with Wisdom of the Oracle, clarify with some tarot, and then I shall select 2 oracle cards as some parting guidance there. Higher power here in the now position, chop wood in next, and never-ending story in message from spirit. I'm getting a sense here that there might be a situation that you're feeling a little bit out of your depth about. The higher power is speaking to developing a connection with the divine. Now, in the situation of hearth and home, it may be that that connection needs to be fostered, because when I go through to the message from spirit here, a never-ending story, there might be some kind of situation on replay at the moment that is causing some tension in the home environment. With the next card, the next position, chop wood. So this is talking about doing tasks, the day-to-day tasks. And as you can see, you've got a broom there with a pail of water, and it clearly points to cleaning up an environment. And so there might be a situation at home that needs to be addressed. And this card is suggesting that the entirety of the issue doesn't need to be tackled all at once. You can actually see some progress when you take care of little tasks or take little steps to achieve the larger goal. In the relationship sense, there could be some healing to be had in relationships within the home environment, and that can be achieved by just doing by just advancing that that olive branch just a tiny bit at a time. You don't need to upset the balance of things and jump in to something very elaborate which could go down the wrong way. So that is what I'm getting from there. In terms of hearth and home, the practical side of things, it could be that there are chores to be tended to in the house. They need to be done, and it would be in everyone's best interest if those tasks were tackled one by one, the small task at a time. Because of course, and in a sense, if you're going to think of it in terms of a collaborative effort, many hands make light work, and that chops the tasks down into smaller pieces to be tackled. And just looking at this higher power too, there's a lot of light and love in this card. And so even if there is some overshadowing going on here, this is really saying the core, the crux of the environment is actually, the core of the environment has so much love in it. And the spirit is just reminding you to be compassionate when you're dealing with these issues. And that could be compassion to self as well. If the tendency to repeat old patterns is with you, and if it's with others, then that's asking, Spirit's asking you to have that that gentleness towards others at this time. Okay. All right, let us move on to the tarot, see what clarification we can gain. So 4 of Swords in the now position, 4 of Pentacles in the next, and 8 of Wands in message from Spirit. Well, isn't that interesting? 4 there. 4 plus 4 equals 8. That is interesting. And look at that. You've got a 4 there as well. So that might play, show up for some of you, the 444 number. And look at that. Isn't that interesting as well? Can you see that? That's the number 42 with chopped wood, and 4 times 2 equals the 8 as well. That really is interesting. All right, so with the 4 of Swords in the now position, just having that connection with the divine, the 4 of Swords is just clarifying that or supporting that and saying that, as you can see, this figure here is resting. And swords are typically about communication, about thoughts. And so it could, from when I see that torch in there with the higher power or that light coming through, it's a, I'm getting the sense of having opening up your mind space to be cleared out, and that allowing that light to shine through. The issue of the never-ending story here can be neutralized. And so the 4 of Swords is asking or reminding you just to allow things to rest. Don't jump in and try and force issues. It really is a time just to allow things to move along and take its course naturally. 4 of Pentacles there. That is really speaking to me about stability. And the stability is gained when you take on small tasks, when you actually take on the subject matter at hand in smaller portions, in smaller bites. Then the balance will be kept, and there won't be any tipping of the scales as such and going to the extremes of something. And that's what I get from there. And look at that. If you were to take that into account, the resulting outcome would be very swift. Very swift. And so the never-ending story is, this clarifying never-ending story, it suggests to me that this narrative that's going around and it's making a replay and reappearing, it'll move out of the space quite quickly, out of your home space quite quickly. All right, so next up, we are going to select Black Moon Astrology cards. Now I've got the element cards here, so I'll select one from, I've just separated them. I'll select an element card. So these cards, this element is going to reflect a card that's been, that's of influence. And secondly, this oracle deck is the Moonology cards deck, and I shall select a card from there, and this once again is going to represent or reflect some kind of influence that's having on the situation. The air element and communicating. My intention for this was to provide some kind of clarity in terms of a factor of influence on the situation, and it could be a positive influence or a negative. So air element obviously could go both ways. Communicating in a soothing manner, that would very definitely help the situation. It's coming to mind at the moment with that never-ending story that this is not a time for brash responses, comments and communication that is abrupt and off the cuff. There's no need for any slashing swords here. It's really about a soothing manner of approach. And would step out of your comfort zone in the North Node. This is asking, or I see this as that which needs to be aspired to. This is about qualities that you are here in this lifetime to aspire to achieve. And so, of course, when we are learning new things and new ways of going about things and dealing with things, it is going to require us to go beyond where it is that we have been able to take ourselves previously. So it's going to mean that we'll be stepping outside of our comfort zone in order to do so. There must be some aspect in here, in this situation, that you will need to embody, you will need to follow through on in order to break this repeating pattern. And if it's not a pattern that you yourself need to break, then you will need to do so, step out of your comfort zone in order to support that process of breaking the story pattern here. And that's going to be achievable when you allow that connection with the divine to guide you through that process, through the steps that are necessary to allow this to come to a close. Because the Eight of Wands here for me is really not only talking about a speedy transition through this. It may have even be the cycles that have been repeatedly had to go through this, and these flying of these wands are literally, it's like the veil of that situation has just been carried away. And that very much is one of these North Node influences where the asking is there for a lesson to be learnt in this situation. If you can embody this here, then it will allow this situation to clear out. It's fabulous, fabulous. That is really, really good news. All right, that is what I have for you. I am going to be providing readings on a weekly basis. If this has been of value, I do look forward to connecting with you again.